This is the Georgia Farm Monitor. Since 1966, your source for state and national agribusiness news and features for farmers and consumers about Georgia's #1 industry, agriculture. The Farm Monitor is produced by the state's largest general farm organization, the Georgia Farm Bureau. Now, here are your hosts, Ray DeLessio and Kenny Burgamy.
Well, the names and faces have changed, but one line has remained a constant every week since 1966. That line, hi there and welcome to the Georgia Farm Monitor. I'm Ray DeLessio. Now that last part has only been around a few years.
Yep, and I'm Kenny Burgamy. Good news is this show isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And as always, we've got a lot to bring you today. Coming up, we'll look back at the 2015 Georgia General Assembly, why you, the producer, should be pleased with the outcome.
Also on the program, with Georgia being known as the Peach State, expectations always high for growers. Well, what can we expect for this year's crop? Mark Wildman will have that story.
And before you stock that tackle box, some changes you need to be aware of regarding the Lake Sinclair fishery. These stories and more starting right now on the Georgia Farm Monitor.
And we begin at the state capitol, where all is quiet now that the 2015 legislative session has come to a close. And as you're about to see, this year's session turned out to be a very good one for Georgia agriculture.
All those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed will say no. This House is adjourned. Signing out!
And with that, another 40 days worth of votes, meetings, and a few heated debates along the way was in the books. Relief? Joy? Pure exhaustion, maybe? How about all the above?
You just kind of say, okay, it's time to go back to the house, go to bed, get a little bit of rest, and get back to real life then from being up here for 3 months away from your family and your friends back home. It's nice, just a nice feeling of relief.
In what Governor Nathan Deal called a productive session, lawmakers agreed on a total state spending budget of $21.5 billion, with a portion of that going to ag programs throughout the state. Among them, the veterinary diagnostic lab in Tifton, which was allocated $1.5 million.
And that's a real plus. That's the second year, so that's $3 million total. I know that diagnostic lab is very important to people all across the state, but especially the producers in South Georgia. And if you look at the budget, since our state revenues have increased somewhat, we were able to put in some more county agent positions. We were able to increase extended day, extended year pay for agriculture education teachers, as well as put some new young farmer positions into the budget. So I think all that is very positive for agriculture in our state.
Transportation, another key issue this legislative session, with much of the focus on the Port of Savannah expansion and the anticipated increased movement of goods both to and from the port. Although the $900 million spending bill allows for the much-needed repair of highways and bridges, travel industry experts have already voiced their concern regarding an excise tax of 26 cents per gallon on gasoline and 29 cents on diesel.
Most people in the state of Georgia don't even fill up once a week, much less, 3 and 4 times a week. Now, I understand us in agriculture during the time that we're gathering and planting, we may be burning a little more fuel, but we will see an increase in traffic from that port expansion, which is good for us. But on the other hand, it presents the other problem from a transportation standpoint, not only for congestion relief, but from the damage on the roads. Our heavier trucks are what that's what does the damage to us. So we've really tried to look at that, anticipating that that's coming on. That's why we have a sense of urgency now to move forward with this and get something done.
This year's session, very kind to the white-tailed deer, now the official state mammal of Georgia. Feral hogs, on the other hand, not so lucky. House Bill 475, also known as the Feral Hog Control Act, gives property owners more flexibility in controlling feral hogs both on their property and leased farmland. It also requires a permit to be obtained before transporting any live feral swine.
The biggest problem with the hogs, the way they got spread, is people catching them and turning them loose in a different area where there wasn't any to start with, so they can hunt them on that place. And these things multiply 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days, there's another litter on the ground, and in about 7 months, those pigs are having pigs. So It's a multiplying problem that we got to get a handle on.
This year's session also resulted in changes to the state's Soil and Water Conservation Commission. Under House Bill 397, the commission now shifts from a standalone agency to one overseen by the Department of Agriculture.
Ultimately, where we came to an agreement is that it remains an independent agency administratively attached with the Department of Ag. It will still operate the way it always has, with an independent board making the decisions for anything that they do. By doing the administratively attaching piece, we're able to save a considerable amount of money that was going for overhead, basically the payroll, those type of operations and functions as a standalone. Then by administratively attaching, allowing it to still operate independently, we were able to capture some of those savings for those type functions and actually push those funds that we were able to save on the administrative side down into the local district.
All right, so a lot of information to absorb. Nonetheless, if you'd like to read more on the bills and passages that took place during this legislative session, just log on to the link you see there on your screen. That is gfb.org/reports2015.
Well, on to other ag news now. As many expected, higher retail prices for several foods resulted in a slight increase in the American Farm Bureau Federation's Spring Picnic Market Basket Survey. The informal survey shows the total cost of 16 foods that can be used to prepare several meals was up $53.87. That is up 60 cents or about 1% from the survey conducted a year ago. Of those 16 foods surveyed, half of them increased and half decreased in average price compared to 1 year ago. American Farm Bureau's Veronica Nye said beef, pork, and dairy prices are the main drivers for the overall price increase.
While the rate of increase in food prices in general has been modest, prices on beef, pork, and dairy items have increased more significantly, and these items will likely be the main driving force behind expected retail food price increases in the coming year. The year-to-year direction of the retail price trend for the Market Basket Survey tracks with the federal government's Consumer Price Index for food at home. Further, USDA has forecasted a 2 to 3% increase in prices for food at home and away from home for 2015 compared to the prior year.
Well, whether it's buying livestock, checking out equipment, or just getting an update on the industry, the 54th Annual Cattlemen's Convention and Beef Expo held at the Perry National Fairgrounds had a little bit of everything.
Yeah, Damon Jones was there and has the story.
75, now 201. Now 1 1/4.
It was a banner year for the cattle industry, and prices are still at an all-time high. And that was very evident at this auction, just one of many events that made up the 54th Cattlemen's Convention and Beef Expo. With more than 90 vendors and plenty of guest speakers participating, it was an event that gave visitors the variety they were looking for.
Well, it brings in a lot of people from across the state. This is really the only time of the year where we're able to draw people from all corners of the state to come here. So it's a really exciting time for folks all around the state to come in. You know, heifers are in high demand, so we can bring them all to one place and give you a lot of different options here at our convention.
It also provided these cattlemen with plenty of chances to network, as they got a unique chance to meet with some of their peers from all corners of the state.
I know it's a good opportunity to meet some folks that are in other counties that have similar problems that you have, or similar opportunities as well. So a lot of times we get used to just talking to the same people, so you can come here and see people that you don't typically see and maybe get some new ideas from folks that you don't see all the time.
There was plenty of information to be had at this event, as well as experts were on hand to give an update on the market and its future. And one of those speakers was Dr. Neville Spear, who says that while the prices might have peaked, there is still plenty of optimism for the upcoming years.
The market has a feel that it's getting set up to kind of consolidate and probably flatten out just a little bit, but I don't think we're going to see any kind of major correction that maybe some would perhaps expect in a traditional commodity market. Very optimistic about the market, but more importantly, I'm optimistic about this business. The beef industry really has sort of decommoditized and separated itself in the protein business, and there's some great years ahead of us and new opportunities.
But these unprecedented prices also come with an increased risk for the producer. So it's more important now than ever to stay informed when making decisions about your operation.
Higher prices are a double-edged sword. It means we're at more revenue, but it also means more capital at risk. I think producers always need to be very careful about being objective about price information and watching for volatility because of the capital that is at risk.
Despite that higher risk, keynote speaker Kevin Oshner believes now is a great time to consider investing in your operation, as demand still remains high for the product despite the prices.
Really, my message today was about recognizing the opportunities to make investments in the cattle business. And I think we have tremendous opportunities facing us in the cattle industry right now. As I mentioned in my presentation, we had record high cattle and beef prices over this past year and setting some new records in the first quarter of this year in terms of retail beef prices. And obviously, we're in a situation where luckily consumers still like our product and tend to be paying for that product. Whether it be steaks or whether it be gourmet hamburgers, people still like the taste of beef.
So with that demand and the tight supplies, things continue to look bright for the cattle industry.
But we still are sitting here not able to fully restock our cow herd, and it's going to be a couple of years before these replacement heifers get into production. So I think we've got a couple of more pretty good years in the beef cattle industry.
Reporting from Perry, I'm Damon Jones for the Georgia Farm Monitor.
All right, Damon, great job, sir. We'll still to come on the Monitor. Georgia Congressman Jody Hice with some harsh words regarding EPA's recent proposals.
But first, when the Monitor continues, they say that change can often be a good thing. Will that be the case for Lake Sinclair? We'll let you decide. That's next on the Georgia Farm Monitor.
Overflowing its banks from spring flooding, the Obion River twists its way to the Mississippi. But first, all creeks drain into the Obion, forming a massive watershed that includes some of Tennessee's most productive agricultural land.
Almost half of the total soybean production in the state of Tennessee is done in this watershed, along with, I think, 30% of the corn and wheat production.
Lori Duncan with UT Extension is studying row crop sustainability, fertilizer application rates, and water conservation in the Obion watershed. She's concerned with soil erosion and fertilizers getting into area waterways. The watershed includes hundreds of miles of impaired streams and lakes.
The goal of this project is to reduce the nutrients that we're putting into the Obion River, because that does ultimately lead to the Mississippi River and is causing issues down in the Gulf of Mexico.
The Obion River flows through 7 northwest Tennessee counties. The watershed itself covers nearly 750,000 acres, and every bit of it either forest or valuable row crop land. Kenneth Barnes will grow 5,000 acres of corn and soybeans in Obion County this year. Here he inspects equipment before planting. Barnes wants the cropland in the watershed to remain productive.
Of course, some of the best ground we've got, it lays in those Obion rivers and Reelfoot Creek watershed spots. So, you know, as far as that goes, it's some of our best stuff.
It is very fertile soil, but it does like to move with water. And that's one of the issues that we've been fighting with for 30 years now.
UT Extension agents like Allen and Tim Smith are also involved in the Obion Watershed Project. Smith says protecting the Obion River is good both for farming as well as the environment, which includes nearby Sportsman's Paradise, Reelfoot Lake.
It's also very big as far as our economy and wetland areas and duck habitat and all that too. We have some of the best duck hunting around, and that brings in other wildlife as well.
Farmers in these parts like to brag you can dig down 50 feet and never touch a rock. This project looks to protect two things: the valuable soil here and the waterways that nourish the land. This is Chuck Denny reporting.
All right, Chuck, thank you, sir. Well, it's that time of year that a lot of you will sneak away to your favorite pond, lake, or trout stream and do some fishing. While typical stocking has been done by the Georgia Department of Natural Resources Wildlife Resources Division and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in many areas, the agencies tell us there are some changes coming to one fishery in the state. There will be less warm water in the cold weather months.
For most anglers in central Georgia, this is a landmark while fishing on Lake Sinclair in Baldwin County, and it has been for many years. But one wildlife fishery biologist in the state said some changes are coming, and the landmark could change too. Georgia Power has a couple of operations on the 417 miles of man-made shoreline near Milledgeville. Steve Sliger, who is responsible for managing the lake's fishery, told me about the biggest change coming to the closing of Plant Branch, and that'll happen in just a few days.
first off, you need to consider that when the plant was operating, there's always water circulating around the peninsula, out from Beaver Dam Creek up around the peninsula, and the intakes are right here on this side over here. So that's going to cease. And what that will mean will generally be that the fish that live in this area here will generally relocate, or they'll have to reorient themselves. So from a fisherman's perspective, the methods of fishing or the places that you fish will change somewhat.
Sliger said the warm water discharge from the plant over the years has provided anglers with positive results between the months of November and March.
Starting sometime in November when the lake really starts cooling off, through about February into March was the warm water time.
We caught up with one Houston County couple who fishes the lake quite often and asked them about the changes.
Yeah, and I hate that. That's kind of our landmark. If we get lost at the lake, we just head for that tower and there it is. So I hate it, but I understand it's for the better.
Sliger said despite the impending changes, there would be some improvements too.
The habitat program consists of fish attractors, and we also have been planting native aquatic vegetation and shoreline areas to provide additional habitat for forage fish, for small fish, and also it helps to control erosion in certain areas.
And as far as the fishing outlook for the remainder of this year on Lake Sinclair?
This lake it has lots of catfish. And in the past, the primary species was channel catfish. But over the last, I would say, 6 years or so, blue catfish have been introduced to the population, and they've really taken off. In fact, they've taken off so much that the majority catfish right now would probably be blue catfish. Somewhere in the ratio of 60% blues to 40% channel catfish. So taking that heat out of the equation, Sinclair is going to be a lot like some of our other reservoirs.
Now, just a reminder, if you missed any part of this story or others on today's Farm Monitor show, you can still see them in their entirety at our YouTube channel. That's the Georgia Farm Monitor. Once there, you can browse the archive of stories back 6 years.
And once you're done watching all those informative stories, just keep on clicking and like the Georgia Farm Monitor Facebook page we have set up for you. And also, if you have a story idea or if you just want to leave us a comment or a suggestion, feel free to send us a message either on Facebook or at the address listed below. That is news@farm-monitor.com. Well, speaking on the House floor in Washington recently, Georgia Congressman Sanford Bishop had this to say about the federal estate tax, also known as the death tax. Said Bishop, quote, "The death tax represents all that is unfair and unjust about the tax structure in America because it undermines the life work and life savings of Americans who want only to pass on to their children and their grandchildren the fruits of their labor and the realization of their American dream," end quote. Now, Bishop voted in favor of legislation that would permanently repeal the federal estate tax. In support of that bill, the congressman went before members of the media and shared the story of Miller County Farm Bureau President Layden Calhoun, whose family had to pay over $1 million in estate taxes when following the passing of his grandfather in 1999.
I can't stand by while Georgia farmers are forced to choose between selling much-needed land, buildings, or equipment, or completely losing a family farm that's been passed down from generation to generation, as Kevin spoke about. I can't stand by and allow the estate tax to continue to punish family-owned businesses in Georgia and throughout the country. To cut to the chase, I've always believed that the death tax is politically misguided, morally unjustified, downright un-American, and really is just a tax on success.
All right, well, stay with us. We are counting down to this year's peach harvest here in Georgia. According to one producer we spoke with, despite the recent cold spells, the outlook for this year's crop is pretty positive. That's next when the Georgia Farm Monitor continues.
Welcome back to the Farm Monitor. Recently, the Monitor got to tag along with Georgia's 10th District Congressman Jody Hice, who took the time to visit with constituents and tour various ag attractions throughout Washington County. Here he is chatting with the Hitchcock family about various ag issues, including the recent farm bill. During his time there, the congressman also got a chance to take a spin on a sprayer. Pretty fun stuff indeed, as you can see. However, when it was time to get down to business, the congressman made it clear that he's concerned about a number of things facing Georgia agriculture. One issue or organization in particular, the EPA.
The EPA is one of those agencies that's creating headaches for so many different people and businesses across the country, and never was it intended to be a hindrance to businesses that it has become. You know, no one is more interested in clean air and clean water in Georgia than Georgians are. And we have our own EPD here in the state, and quite frankly, the federal EPA is problematic.
Well, finally today, one of Georgia's most recognizable crops getting closer to harvest, and soon grocery stores, farmers markets, and roadside stands will be stocked with fresh Georgia peaches.
Yeah, the Monitor's Mark Wildman paid a visit to Taylor Orchards in Taylor County to get an update on the crop.
All is quiet right now at the packing house at Taylor Orchards in Reynolds, but soon that will all change. Out in the orchard, co-owner Jeff Wainwright walks through and checks some of his early variety peaches that are still small but are looking good.
There's a 7-year-old block of Flavor Rich. We've got these pruned up a little bit different. We're picking these on ladders, trying to get more efficiency from each acre of land that we farm.
A cold snap came through a while back and thinned out some of the early peaches, but there is still plenty of fruit on the trees, and they are going to be ready for consumers.
We'll start around the 12th of May and finish around Labor Day. And this particular year, I think we'll have an ample supply of peaches all the way up. The late peaches aren't what they normally are, but they're still, it'll be an ample supply of peaches.
This time of year, growers have a little more energy because they know harvest time is right around the corner.
You wake up a little bit earlier every morning and you got something to do. You know, when you're in the dead of winter and it's 25 degrees and you've got workers in the field and you're like, yeah, I don't even want to get out of the truck, it's so cold. And this time it warms up and it, you know, bloom, and then the young peaches, and you see a lot of activity on the other farms going on, and if that doesn't excite you, you don't need to be farming.
It is hard to believe that in a very short period of time the crop will go from very small to full size. But growers work hard to maximize their orchards. He is constantly checking his trees and making sure the crop is healthy.
You're looking at the different development of each peach. You want to make sure that you have the frost hadn't bothered it, that the peach is pollinated right. You want to make sure the set's there, because in this particular orchard, next week we'll have crews in here spacing the fruit out or thinning the fruit, which basically is doing this, you know, just pulling off. You want the biggest one on the end, and then you want these two here. But you know, before you send that crew in there, you've got to make sure that Mother Nature's not throwing you a curveball. You got to make sure, with the frost we had last Sunday and the rain we've had in the bloom, that, you know, these crops, you're doing the right thing, because the consumer demands it, and you want to provide almost a picture-perfect peach, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Georgia is known around the country and world as the peach state, and this farm is proud to grow this famous Georgia crop.
It's only a few of us left, and mainly in the middle Georgia area. You got a few growers in South Georgia and a few in North Georgia, but the majority, 95% of the peaches are grown right here, and they're grown by basically 5 or 6 families. And you know, to say that you've withstood Mother Nature, you withstood the market, you've done a lot of things, and you managed to stay here, that you know, it's kind of like the last man standing, and I think everybody standing now will be able to stand until it's over with.
Even though all is quiet now, very soon we will all be eating fresh Georgia peaches, thanks to Jeff and all of the other Georgia peach producers. In Taylor County, I'm Mark Wildman for the Georgia Farm Monitor.
All right, Mark, nice job as always. Well, unfortunately, that is going to do it for this week's edition of the Georgia Farm Monitor.
Here's a reminder for all the latest ag info that regards food, great recipes, and what's happening down on the farm. Check out our Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest pages. You'll stay informed and see what's up in the world of farming, plus the Farm Monitor Show.
Take care, everybody. We will see you next week right here on the Georgia Farm Monitor.
Have a great week, everybody.